Tonight, the growing crisis, shortages of the COVID vaccine as those highly contagious variants spread. With a staggering 1 in 13 Americans who've now been infected, many are asking where are the doses of the 41 million distributed, only about half administered. In New York City, the opening of vaccination mega sites at the Yankees and Mets stadiums postponed. What's the holdup? Despite the delays, President Biden raising the goal for his first 100 days up to 150 million vaccinations. But his dire projection, as many as 660,000 deaths before we turn the corner. When he says anyone who wants a shot will be able to get one, and his new travel ban taking effect. Those mutant strains now in nearly half the states. How effective Moderna says its vaccine is against them, particularly the highly contagious South African variant and the upgrade it's making. The historic moment happening tonight, the House delivering the article of impeachment against Donald Trump to the Senate for inciting the deadly Capitol riot. Double storm threat, 100 million people under winter alerts across 28 states. Al Roker is tracking it.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening, everyone. When it comes to COVID vaccines, we are awash in numbers. Doses distributed, doses administered, second doses available. Problem is, none of them seem to be adding up for a growing number of American seniors who can't seem to get their place in line for shots, or worse yet, end up booted from the line. And here's the number most worrisome. 600,000. That's the death toll President Biden says we could reach before we turn the corner in this pandemic in a few months. Vaccine shortages, worrisome new virus variants, and the first step in the trial of Donald Trump all making news on this Monday evening. Tom Costello has our lead story.
6 weeks into the national vaccine rollout, many Americans are asking, what's the holdup? Complaining their vaccination appointments were canceled.
On a national level, it's a disaster.
We spent an hour and a half of our time and then another half hour in line waiting for something that never happened.
In San Diego, where Americans 65 and older can sign up, 70-year-old Mark Smith has tried repeatedly, but no luck.
I've tried every single day, sometimes on the hour, on all of the different sites, and a 65-year-old cannot get an appointment.
States report they're not getting the doses the federal government promised. Today, New York City postponed a mass vaccination plan at Yankee Stadium and Citi Field, where the Mets play. The governor says the state is prepared to dramatically ramp up vaccinations.
We can get the needle in the arm. We just need the supply itself.
What's the problem? The CDC reports just over 41 million doses have been distributed to states so far. Nearly 22 million doses have been administered, as states hold back doses for the required second dose. Though so far, just 3.2 million people have received both doses. President Biden today reiterated he wants to administer 1 million shots a day, aiming for up to 150 million shots by May, and hopes that by the spring, anyone who wants a vaccination should be able to get one.
I feel confident that by summer we're going to be well on our way to heading toward herd immunity.
One hang-up, arranging external family approval before vaccinating residents in long-term care facilities. But former Trump FDA chief Scott Gottlieb, now on the Pfizer board, says that's simply poor planning.
Now, quite frankly, this is something the government could have worked on in advance. I think that could have been solved for. It wasn't. But that's part of the delay here.
Meanwhile, Moderna said today its vaccine does provide protection against the new UK and South African virus variants, though not as much against the South African strain. It's now working on a booster shot to improve protection.
What we're trying to do is bring forward a booster that would specifically help people increase their immunity against the South African variant. That's something you could do on top of or in combination with the existing vaccines if it became necessary.
Tom, I know another vaccine maker, Merck, said it's stopping its vaccine drug trials because of poor performance. How is that going to impact things?
Well, it's not part of Operation Warp Speed, so the government wasn't banking on it. In the meantime, Johnson & Johnson could come to the FDA for approval within weeks for its vaccine. Lester?
All right, Tom, thanks very much. And those new virus strains have prompted the U.S. to impose bans on foreign travelers from countries like South Africa and Brazil amid fears the variants could cause a new explosion of cases here. Miguel Almaguer has more.
The travel ban signed today by the president is the latest measure taken to combat the COVID crisis. Non-U.S. citizens who have recently spent time in South Africa, as well as those in Brazil, the U.K., Ireland, and 26 European countries, will be barred from entering the U.S. A broad move as an exploding number of variants of the virus are discovered here at home.
Everything should be on the table, including a temporary shutdown of international borders so that we can contain the spread.
With the highly contagious UK variant already found in roughly half the U.S., there is growing concern it may also be deadlier. And now the Brazilian variant found in Minnesota. The South African strain, not yet discovered stateside, appears to be more resilient to the vaccine, though officials stress the vaccine remains highly effective.
We really need to make sure that we begin, and we already have, to prepare, if it's necessary, to upgrade the vaccines.
The highly contagious strains threaten to roll back progress. New infections and hospitalizations are slowing in much of the country for now.
It's critically important that we accelerate our efforts to get as many people vaccinated as possible.
Even in hard-hit California, today the governor eased restrictions across the state. But there are clear signs the crisis isn't over.
Tonight, 1 out of every 13 Americans has already been infected with the virus, and more than 3,000 are still dying every day. Miguel Almaguer, NBC News, Los Angeles.
I'm Richard Engel in London, where the UK variant is driving up death tolls, forcing tighter lockdowns.
I anticipate the US will see exactly what the UK has seen in sense of virus, which is more difficult to control, so spikes in cases and deaths.
Neil Ferguson is an epidemiologist, professor of mathematical biology, and advises the British government on COVID.
So this virus has changed in two ways. First of all, it spreads more easily. But also, if you get it, to get a severe illness, need to be hospitalized and unfortunately more likely to die.
How long will it take for it to spread to the rest of the United States? Or will it?
Yes, it will spread to the rest of the United States. We think it has between 40 and 70% greater transmissibility, depending on setting.
So when and how does this strain spread faster than the original virus?
With just infrequent brief contacts. Meeting somebody on the street or stopping to have a coffee without wearing a mask. Whilst the risk is low of transmission, that risk may have gone up by as much as 70% for those brief contacts.
New rules of the road for an emerging strain. Richard Engel, NBC News, London.
All right, Dr. John Torres joins us now. John, Dr. Fauci just said that it makes common sense to double mask. So should we all be doing it now?
Lester, it depends. You want a mask with 2 or 3 layers. It's made out of a high-quality fabric with a high thread count. One way you can tell, shine a light at it. If the light shines through it, then you want a double mask. And the way you can do that, use something like a surgical mask, put that underneath, or even 2 cloth masks. Then put your cloth mask on top of this one. This does a few things. 1, it makes sure you have extra layers between you and the outside air. 2, it fits the mask more snugly to your face. And 3, when you're talking, it makes sure the mask doesn't move, because the important part is to wear it correctly.
All right, Dr. John, thanks very much for that. And breaking tonight, Congress moving one step closer to former President Trump's second impeachment trial. The House delivering an article of impeachment to the Senate floor. NBC's Jeff Bennett now has late details.
Tonight, House Democrats turning over that impeachment article against former President Trump to the Senate, triggering an unprecedented second impeachment trial now set for February 9th. The article alleges incitement of insurrection after that pro-Trump mob stormed the U.S. Capitol in a deadly riot. Now, a sharp divide among Republican senators, many opposed to a trial, which will begin more than 2 weeks after Mr. Trump left office.
I think the trial is stupid. I think it's counterproductive. We already have a flaming fire in this country, and it's like taking a bunch of gasoline and pouring it on top of the fire.
But tonight, Senator Mitt Romney, the only Republican to vote for conviction last time, suggesting he's open to convicting again.
What is being alleged and what we saw, which is incitement to insurrection, is an impeachable offense. If not, what is?
Democrats would need 17 Republican senators to join them to convict, an uphill climb. And tonight, we're learning more about the trial itself. Instead of Chief Justice John Roberts, who the Constitution says presides over impeachment trials of sitting presidents, Senate Democrats have tapped their longest-serving colleague, Senator Pat Leahy, to preside over this trial of former President Trump. Republicans slamming the move.
And he's got a conflict of interest. I think that ought to cause reasonable people some more skepticism about whether this is a path we should go down.
It all comes as President Biden faces pushback over the price tag of his nearly $2 trillion COVID relief package, as the White House reaches out to Republicans.
How long are you willing to get sufficient Republican support?
I have been doing legislative negotiations for a large part of my life. No one wants to give up on their position until there's no other alternative.
Meanwhile, the Justice Department's Inspector General says he's opened an investigation into whether current or former DOJ officials attempted to overturn the election results and keep President Trump in power. Lester?
Jeff Bennett at the White House, thanks. We're following severe weather from coast to coast, including a large winter storm that has tens of millions in its path tonight, with heavy snow falling in the plains and parts of the Midwest. And right behind it, another series of storms. Al Roker is tracking it all. Al, what can we expect?
Lester, 107 million people coast to coast under some sort of winter weather advisory or warning. As this system develops overnight, heavy snow for the Great Lakes, Chicago to Detroit, an icy mix for the mid-Atlantic into the Northeast, a morning commute that's a mess from Chicago to New York, and a slippery commute in the Northeast and New England in the evening, and then a second system comes into the Southeast, bringing heavy rain on Wednesday. A foot of snow in the Sierra, and as we get into the eastern part of the country, anywhere from 6 to 8 inches of snow through the plains and heavier snow in the upper New England area. Lester?
I know you will have it all covered for us in the morning. Thank you, Al. Tonight, the team hunting for the source of the coronavirus tells NBC News China is sharing information not previously made public. Our Keir Simmons is looking into whether China is telling everything it knows.
More questions tonight over China's research into coronavirus in bats and what the Chinese know about the origins of the pandemic.
There's been a lack of transparency from the very beginning.
NBC News confirming a Wuhan Institute of Virology database with 20,000 entries, which may have offered important clues about what the Chinese were studying, was taken down last spring. A senior lab official has said it was removed for security reasons. Tonight, one member of the World Health Organization's team in Wuhan says the Chinese are supplying them with data not previously made public.
Can you trust the Chinese data?
This is a scientific trip, admittedly with a lot of politics and a lot of blame game, but it's the science that's taken lead here, and the data don't lie.
But senior Chinese virologists are already suggesting that the virus originated outside China, including the top epidemiologist at China's CDC, speaking to NBC News' Janice Mackie-Freya this month.
Do you believe the virus started in Wuhan?
No.
Do you believe it started in China?
Yeah.
We put that to the WHO.
Surely it's too early to reach that conclusion.
It is definitely too early to come to a conclusion of exactly where this virus started, either within or without China.
Other scientists are even less equivocal.
We can be quite certain that it comes back to this original outbreak in Wuhan.
China's record includes arresting or detaining a dozen journalists and whistleblowers for telling the truth about COVID. Still, the WHO team in China tells us, so far, no question is off limits.
All right, Keir Simmons tonight. Thank you. In 60 seconds, how to navigate travel plans for when it's safer again. Will travel insurance cover you? What you need to know before you book. The White House has two more new residents, Champ and Major. The Bidens' two German shepherds have officially made the move from Delaware to Pennsylvania Avenue. Finally, a big change coming to the Super Bowl. Jolene Kent on why some big advertisers are taking a timeout.
For the first time in 37 years, Budweiser is benching their shot at a viral Super Bowl ad, saying instead they'll pass some of that airtime onto vaccine awareness campaigns for the pandemic.
Let's turn our strength into hope.
How different are ads going to look this year overall?
It's a tricky year to hit the tone and decide, are people ready for a laugh or do they want something more serious?
Other iconic players like Coke, Pepsi, and Hyundai are changing their game plan too. These companies sidelining their traditional ads after their bottom lines took a hit in 2020 thanks to COVID-19.
Puppy monkey baby.
They'll save an estimated $5.5 million for each 30-second ad not run. But will this Hail Mary be worth it?
Certainly, the game last year in 2020 was the most watched event on television. So brands who sit out are risking that moment. You know, they're risking not getting their ad in front of a huge amount of people and also being part of a cultural moment.
But Pepsi will show up in other ways, doubling down on its halftime show sponsorship and releasing its ad early.
I said, ooh.
And you'll still see these brands on your phone. Social media advertising is the name of the game this year. It's cheaper, it's easier to target you, as so many of us skip parties for safety, staying right here on our couches, watching and scrolling from home.
With some of these big names sitting out, other newcomers like Fiverr, Vroom, and Scott's Miracle-Gro are swapping in.
We are seeing a number of brands advertise for the first time ever this year, and most of them have the common thread of having businesses that performed well during the pandemic.
And regardless of who's trying to catch your attention, expect to see a major focus on social justice.
And this is where it's tricky for brands because they can get accused of purpose washing. If they just try to bandwagon and say that, you know, we're here for unity or we're supporting Black Lives Matter, but they're not backing it up with actual actions, then they're going to be called out on that.
A new playing field as brands try to score points with every fan. Jolene Kent, NBC News, Los Angeles.
That's Nightly News for this Monday. Thank you for watching, everyone. I'm Lester Holt. Please take care of yourself and each other. Good night. Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.